Hey, for all the authors that are listening out there, I wanted to share with you this great email that we received here at the Reading with Your Kids podcast from Dr. Linda Mubarak. She is a past guest and the author of Maxine's New Job. Here's the email. Dear Fatima and Jed, good news! Maxine's New Job has been nominated to receive the prestigious Henri Award at the 2018 Christian Literacy Awards for Outstanding Literacy Work in the Children's Book Division. I sincerely believe your certifying Maxine as a great read helped bring increased social media attention to the book. Thank you for the exposure and the great marketing. We are so happy for Dr. Linda Mubarak that her book, Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read, Maxine's New Job, received this prestigious recognition. We would love to help your book receive that same kind of recognition. If you are interested in having your book considered for our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program, please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can click on the contact button, send us a note, and we'll send all the information back to you, or you can go right to our Certified Great Read page on our website. It's fun, it's easy, and it is really an effective way to let the world know that your book stands out above all the rest. The Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program.
Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni miliwanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful and historic neighborhood of Reedville. We are delighted that you are joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Amazon Music, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is here to help us celebrate World Read Aloud Day, Dwayne Millard. He is the Senior Vice President for Literacy Initiatives at Scholastic. Before we invite Dwayne into the studio, you have to keep this top secret, okay? I'm not supposed to mention any of this, but if you are in the eastern Massachusetts, southern New Hampshire, Maine, Rhode Island area, we're going to be giving away tickets to the Paw Patrol experience at Camp Burlington. This is really going to be a really fun event. Like I said, I can't give you any more details right now, but please be sure to listen to all the different episodes of the Reading with the Kids podcast. In the next week or two, we're going to be giving away 2 family packs of tickets to that event. Please don't tell anybody I told you. Just be sure, subscribe today and listen and be ready to act. We want you to be the winner. Joining us right now from the beautiful state of New Jersey, our guest today is the Senior Vice President for Literacy Initiatives at Scholastic. You guys heard of Scholastic. We love the folks at Scholastic. Our guest is here to celebrate with us World Read Aloud Day. Please welcome to the show, Dwayne Millard. Hey, Dwayne, how are you?
Hey, Jed, and so nice to meet you. Thanks for the invitation.
I'm delighted to have you here. I think this is the 3rd or 4th year we've celebrated World Literacy Day with the folks at Scholastic. What a wonderful day. Please remind everybody what this day is all about.
Oh, no problem. It is just an amazing day, an amazing annual event. So World Read Aloud Day was created by Lit World in partnership with Scholastic. It's a globally celebrated event. It's a tradition right now. It's in 173 countries this year. We're going to be celebrating on Wednesday, February 2nd. It is an opportunity to call attention to the power of story and the power of sharing stories. It's also a moment to really remind us of the powerful ways that stories can bring our kids, our families, and our communities together. So we are going to be celebrating World Read Aloud Day on February 2nd and looking forward to as many people joining in with us.
So how exactly can people join with Scholastic for World Read Aloud Day?
So I'm going to start with the basics and the simple because I think it's important that the most important way that you can join is really to think of a book, choose a book, think of somebody that you want to share that story with and have that shared experience with the other person or people. That's really how you do it in the spirit of it. But then beyond that, Scholastic is going to, between January 31st and February 2nd have virtual events. We're going to have author events on our Scholastic home-based site, where it's a free and safe digital platform for kids and families to participate. We're going to have chat events with families. We're going to talk about creating reading memories at home. We're going to have some opportunities for tutorials and fun and engaging read-alouds, craft activities, trivia events, and panel discussions with literacy experts. And all of that's going to happen on World Read Aloud Day from a virtual experience, and you can have access to that at scholastic.com/World Read Aloud Day.
You just mentioned something that really grabbed my attention. Reading memories. What's that all about?
So reading memories, meaning when you think about how we just remember the important parts of our world, they happen from stories. And so when we say reading memories, the memories come from stories, whether you're reading those stories, sharing those stories, hearing those stories from family members, teachers, community members. Those are the memories that we're trying to help people to build in their process of just, continuing to grow their character, whatever age they happen to be, because we grow forever.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think you and I just made a connection before we started recording, with both of us reliving the first time we discovered the beautiful, warm Caribbean.
Right. Yes. And that's a story, right? It's like you have a story of that aha moment and that experience, and I as well, when we both realized that we both love where we live in the Northeast, but we understood the power of that warm ocean water when you go a little further south.
Yes, indeed. And how once you get into that nice, beautiful, warm, clean ocean water, you don't want to go back.
It's hard to come back. It is so hard to come back. I went to the Jersey Shore a lot more before I saw what it was like to, really feel that clear, clean, warm water when you go again to the Caribbean or down in the Southeast.
Yeah.
Experience.
But those memories are so valuable. One of the things my daughter and Dwayne, the people who've listened to the podcast know I've been doing educational magic shows at schools for over 30 years. And my daughter, because she went to a very unique international high school, got to tour with me a lot.
Wow.
And there are many times when you're on the road for 3 weeks at a time, driving around the country in a van, things happen. Yes. And she very quickly, when we're broken down somewhere in the middle of West Virginia with no signs of civilization, instead of freaking out, she was able to turn to me and say, it's going to make a good story someday.
Yes, agreed. I mean, and so the connection to it, Jed, when I think about what you just said in our conversation is, experiences happen in many ways. Being able to do things like travel and see different parts of the world and meet different people through your daughter experiencing those magic shows and those connections is obviously going to resonate and be memories for her. And reading can also be a part of experience, exposure, and memories. And they're actually connected. And one of the reasons for World Read Aloud Day is to make that connection. Read aloud is another way to experience and create these memories to help to mold you and the people you care about and the people in your community.
Yeah. Dwayne, one of the things that I've asked my beautiful wife, who was a special needs teacher in Boston for over 34 years, and early on in the life of this podcast, I sat down with her and I said, hey, what can I do? Most people who are listening to the Reading with Your Kids podcast, I'm guessing they're already reading with their kids. What can we do as a podcast to reach out to those families that aren't reading with their kids? Maybe the families that you're serving. And her immediate answer was, well, a lot of my families, the parents can't read, or they can't read English, or they're working 3 jobs and they literally don't have time. How can those families, especially the families who aren't reading English, don't have the confidence to read, maybe can just get by reading, a menu or a bill, but they don't feel confident sitting down and reading a story, how can those parents still experience the joy of sharing stories with their kids?
That's a great question. So I think the first thing is awareness and agency. Parents being able to understand the power that they bring to the table, regardless of the set of tools that they have or believe that they don't have. Starting point, agency, and seeing the power they have to impact their children's experiences. An example of a Spanish-speaking parent and being aware is making sure that there's an awareness and understanding that sharing experiences and learning how to process these different experiences, which impacts how we think about critical thinking and comprehension, doesn't have a language barrier. So if you can read in Spanish at home, that can be the opportunity for read aloud and sharing. Mm-hmm. But then when you think about technology, so myself, I used to only read books, print books. Mm-hmm. Now, if you ask me what I read, I travel a lot. So I read in two forms. Pretty much it's a book on my iPad and iBooks, mm-hmm. or I'm listening to an audiobook. Uh-huh. So those are other opportunities for shared experience, because it can be sitting down and listening to somebody who is narrating a story and is engaging, reading a book that you think the topic is of interest. But then the last piece is shared reading doesn't always have to be a novel. So when you think about the limitations of time, it could be, sharing an excerpt from an article or from some other source. There are so many ways that we can share our experiences that, novels are obviously a great place to do so, but we don't have to limit ourselves to mm-hmm. that. It could be a magazine article. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Dwayne, we're talking about reading memories. One of the memories that I have was such a fun evening at my poor, beautiful wife's expense. We're sitting at the dinner table, and my wife had a new medication, and she wasn't sure about it, and I did the evil, cruel thing of pulling out that little sheet with all the possible side effects.
That's cruel.
And read them in a very, very dramatic voice and passed it around to the kids who, also read it in a very dramatic voice. And, that was hilarious for everybody except for my wife.
I'm visualizing this as you're sharing the stories. So keep going.
Hey, one of the things we've talked about here in the podcast is just the value. We're talking about the value of story. If you're not able to read, or if you're tired of reading the same book for 4,000 or 5,000 times, you can pull out a picture album and just tell stories of the moments that those different pictures happened. Totally
agree. I mean, pictures is a beautiful way to tell stories. Mm-hmm. Beautiful way to tell stories. And it's a beautiful way to share in the arts as well. Mm-hmm. And so why not have that as another option as a tool?
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah.
And then just to add one other piece that I left out in the earlier, and sometimes this happens to me. My mother had told me to download an app because it reads like, your emails to you and things of that nature. And it just turned on one day when I was somewhere, and it just starts reading my email. And I actually don't like the emails being read to me. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is the tools are out there to read things that you can have something read that's text on the web just through an app. Mm-hmm. So our accessibility to language through technology just gives us more options.
Yeah. Dwayne, one of the things we've talked about here on the podcast and, in trying to encourage families to read more with their kids is just sharing that statistic that a kid who is read to every night for 20 minutes a night, when they get to preschool or kindergarten, they will have already heard over 800,000 to 1 million more words than their peers who weren't read to. And that gives them this incredible advantage. It also puts the kids who didn't get read to at an incredible disadvantage that is really hard for them to ever make up. Now, short of telling families, stop reading with your kids when they're little, we don't want to be unfair. We want to make this a more equitable world. How can we help those kids who aren't being read to? Is there a way for us to politely and respectfully get the word out and support the families who might not be doing that reading?
It's a difficult, but it is a challenge, and challenges were meant to be overcome. One of the ways that I think we have to get better is finding ways to push ourselves into places and spaces that are outside of the school walls and in the community where the parents are going. how are we showing ourselves and building this awareness and building this symbolism of the power of sharing story in grocery stores? How is this happening, in the libraries? How is this happening at the YMCA? How is this happening when the children are at, the playground, the basketball court, playing football, in organized sports, or actually in this, not organized sports? Mm-hmm. How are we actually finding a way to push ourselves into other parts of the communities, the barbershop, and how are we actually having that story there? The more that we can get an understanding that the power of story is such a critical part of what all parents want, which is for their children to grow up and be happy and successful and self-sustaining, is all connected to what we're talking about here. Mm-hmm. And we just need to reach out to more places and take advantage of these tools that we have, again, because, we are in the internet social media revolution, which has its negatives, but it has its positives. And this is one of those areas of positivity that we can use, and also use this moment that we're in. Mm-hmm. This moment that we're in, when you think about what we've been going through for the last, 2 years, I sometimes lose track of time, because of this, but, it's one of the great things of this experience is it is forcing people to reconsider and think about change, when most of the times we don't look forward to change. Change is happening all around us right now. The world is more fluid, and we need to find ourselves the pathways to push this message, this goal, this initiative, and this important just strategy and vision into this semi-permeable space that we're in right now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. People don't like change, but we have all been pushed into a time in history where things are perpetually changing.
Yes.
You're a parent and a grandparent. Talk a little bit, if you could, about the similarities and differences between when you read to your kids and now when you're reading to your kids' kids.
It's a special thing, I'm sure you know as well. I have memories of reading to my children. I know that they recall and they appreciate those experiences and those shares when you think about some of the stories that we read. But it is totally different in a special way to actually watch your granddaughter be immersed in the reading and love it and have favorite books and have favorite stories and have, repetitive reading happening where they're actually reading a book to you. And then also seeing my daughter be fully engaged into this, experience of the importance of sharing through book. And I can see really more the bonding that they are experiencing. So, I get to be, on the outside looking in. So it's almost like, watching a movie being made. Mm-hmm. It's fun. It's definitely fun.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And again, we go back to what we started with at the beginning of the conversation. You're watching your daughter and her daughter make these beautiful connections, build this beautiful connection between themselves, and it's happening through story.
Yes, without a question, it is happening through story, and it's because we've been there, seen it, and we're more wise. That I get to actually see how the wisdom and introspection and reflection is happening with her along the whole path of seeing how this is impacting my granddaughter, her daughter, and their relationship.
Yeah.
So it's like I can be predictive now. If it was the stock market, then I'd really more so appreciate this. I'd know exactly where to put my money.
Boy, I wish I had that too. But it's right. It builds that connection, but it also, I love the fact that when we're sitting and we're reading with our kids, when the most important person in a kid's life tells the world, I'm taking a break from you right now. I am spending time with my daughter, and we're reading together. And the most important person in your daughter's world is asking her what she thinks and is interested in her thoughts and her ideas and her dreams. That's incredibly powerful.
It is incredibly powerful, and I'm sure you would agree that the benefits of it are going to show itself because, life is ebbs and flows. And as a former middle school teacher, I know the middle school world is a little different. So the more that you can build that bond, build those experiences, build that trust, and then when our children get into a space where they're in another space of figuring out who they are, how they're communicating with you and what experience you shared with them play out over that period of time where, their peers become more influential, but they're still being influenced by your bond and your relationship and your trust. Yeah. So you're building, you're kind of building this foundation, bedrock, to make sure that they can make it through the ebbs and flows process, even when your voice isn't there. Mm-hmm. I think what we do in the early years is powerful, and I think sustaining it. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't stop. It should still happen when they're in middle school. It should grow to the point where, again, I was saying the other day, we read books as adults together, So this is an ongoing process. It's just good communication. It's growing together, and we're communal people, so why not?
I wanted to take advantage of, talking to an expert, your former middle school teacher. That is a time in life when many of us think that the children that we love, have been abducted and been replaced by these evil creatures that we're constantly fighting with. I think, taking time to read and co-read a story with and co-read a story with our middle school kids can be so powerful, and just a reminder that this is somebody that you really love. They might be acting not so well right now. But
right. Yes. Middle school is challenging. I mean, I remember the challenges of my own experience, and I've seen the challenge of other middle school students. But, they still want to share. They still want to hear stories. They still want to be a part of, discussions. They want to be a part of the experience. So, when I taught middle school, I can tell you that one of the stories that we read in class, which, if you think from the text, it wasn't a sixth grade book, but when you think about what it was teaching in relation to satire, it was related to sixth grade work. And I'm probably going to butcher the name of the book, but I'm sure this, the true story of the big bad wolf.
Okay, yeah. Uh-huh.
And it's basically a retelling of the story from the wolf's perspective. And so it's giving his point of view. And it is comedic. I'm in a class with sixth graders. They're rolling and crying as we're sharing this story together, as we're learning, parts of story and what satire is when you're thinking about writing, which is what's relative to a sixth grader. Mm-hmm. But we're using an elementary book that is easy to read and laugh at, and everyone can comprehend the story to paint this message. And we're having fun with it. Mm-hmm. And people in that class still today that I know, on Facebook and Instagram, still remind me of those type of things. I remember that story that we read in class about the big bad wolf, and it's I bought that book for my children.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Hey, you just bring up another point, that how important it is for us to make reading fun. And I think one thing that happens to kids is, especially when they get into middle school and then high school, is that there's so many books that kids have to read.
Yes.
And they're overwhelmed, and the last thing they want to do when they finally get through the chore of doing all this reading that they don't want to read and that they have to read, when they finally get through that, the last thing they want to do is pick up a book. But that's, I think, when we can really save them by picking up a book together. That's just fun, and that a kid's going to want to continue to read.
It is, and I have to just piggybacking on what you just said. The beautiful thing about Scholastic and its 100+ years of existence is still today. It is all about choice. Mm-hmm. It is all about diversity. It is all about multiple perspectives and different types of experiences in text. And so choice is a big thing. Choice is a big thing in what you choose to read in the classroom, what you choose to read at home. If you remember when we were younger and you actually had a book club and you get to pick those books, you were already, you owned the experience before the books ever came, because you actually were able to choose something that you wanted. And so when we work to get books in homes and when we work to build libraries and classrooms, it is all about trying to allow for as much choice as possible because it's self-motivating.
Yeah. You know, one of my memories of being one of those evil middle school students, and other than standing outside the principal's office, was being in the library and getting to choose the books that I wanted to read.
Yes, totally agree. Totally agree. Great experience.
Dwayne, before I ask you to remind us where we can go to take part in Scholastic's World Read Aloud Day, can you let everybody know where they can go if there's somebody listening that doesn't know what Scholastic is all about and the book fairs and whatnot? Where can people go to find out more about what Scholastic does for schools?
Easy. On the web, on your phone, iPad, computer, doesn't matter, library, it's scholastic.com. If you go to scholastic.com, it is the entry point to the world of Scholastic. And specifically for World Read Aloud Day, it is scholastic.com/World Read Aloud Day.
Well, we've had a great time speaking with the Senior Vice President for Literacy Initiatives at Scholastic, Dwayne Millard. Dwayne, thank you so much for helping us celebrate World Read Aloud Day and reminding us the power of story.
I appreciate the time, and let's look forward to warmer oceans in our future.
Amen. Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Anitra Rao Schulte. She'll be here to celebrate Dancing with Daddy. This is a really, really heartwarming story and discussion. You don't want to miss it. Hey, you are the author of a fantastic children's book. We would love for you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the author's Click Here button at the top of the page. Find out how you can be a guest on the podcast, letting the world know all about your book and a great long-form interview. It doesn't cost a thing. It's really fun, and it's super easy. You can also find out about how you can submit your book to our certified great read panel. Find out if it is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars. And, of course, we would love for you to check out our monthly promotion program. Let us celebrate your books here in the podcast with commercials on the podcast, messages to our 70,000 plus social media followers, and have your book displayed on our nationwide network of digital pedestrian billboards. You can learn all about that at readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guest, Dwayne Millard. Please be sure to take part in World Read Aloud Day, not only today, but every single day of the year. Also want to thank my team, Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Skylar Strauss. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.